What up, what up? It's your girl TiffBfirst, and we're back with a special edition of 99 Problems. And today I am at the Tension facility in Denver, Colorado. I told y'all I was going to be in Colorado, and I'm out here and I'm checking out the space and all of the amazing holds. And I just want to introduce my guest. Will is actually going to talk to us about holds, training, climbing, and whatever else he feels like he wants to talk about. So, yeah, what do you do? Who are you here at Tension?
Well, here I'm one of the founders of Tension Climbing, and we're a super small company, so I wear a lot of different hats. But for the most part, the thing that I enjoy doing the most is kind of the product and systems development around just all the different things that we make and how they all kind of integrate together.
How long have you been around? How long is...
So Tension has been around since like the end of 2015, right at the end of 2015, beginning of 2016. But it's grown a lot probably in the last 2 years, I think has been like our biggest period of growth. We started out really just kind of making campus rungs and then expanded into like our portable hangboard, the flashboard, and other hangboard products, and then holds, which then kind of came together and made the tension board, which is like our standardized wall system. And we just kind of continue to look for areas in training and climbing where we feel like we have some cool ideas and can execute on new products, and then just start designing and see where it goes.
If you had to pick, what is your favorite training resource?
My favorite training resource.
I'm just saying, you got the campus, you got the system board.
I think that's a really difficult question.
I know, that's why I asked.
Dang.
If you're on a deserted island,
if I'm
and
on
you had
a
to
deserted
take
island,
one training mechanism.
Are there rocks on the deserted island that I can climb?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't put anybody on a deserted island without rocks. That would just be blasphemy.
I would really like a small bouldering wall. It could even be like one sheet of plywood or something, with like my choice of holds on it. Yeah, that would be my favorite thing.
Would you be able to change it, or is it fixed?
Ideally, if it was very small, I would be able to change it.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like to be able to move the holds around.
We'll see
yeah.
about that.
Depends on if I have a wrench on the island as well. I would need a
This
wrench.
island is getting way too extravagant.
Yeah.
This was supposed to be deserted.
It doesn't sound very deserted
it's
anymore.
It's not going to be flying in holes to you. But yeah, so I love training. Before I discovered, that's how I refer to my relationship with climbing, because it wasn't like someone asked me to go climbing or I just saw a gym and walked into it. I was on vacation and Googled things to do in Colorado. And if you had to ask Google, what should you do when you're visiting Colorado, of course, probably number 1 through 3 is rock climbing. And I was like, what the heck is rock climbing? So before discovering rock climbing, I was always training. I was running, I was biking, I was swimming, always active, and I was hardcore hiking. This channel actually used to be a hiking channel before I changed it to climbing. And I am fascinated with how the body builds strength. And I think the tools that you all have and the resources is so specific to this one thing.
Yeah.
Whereas there's other things, pull-up bars and other things that work towards a multitude of different sports. So I think what's fascinating, what I really want you to talk about, is these training resources and how they really do develop a climber. And then we'll talk about when people should use them. But, you know, just a little bit about, especially the fingerboard and especially the campus board. Because I think that's one of, between those two, I find are again, unique to climbing, but also very, very specific in how you should use them and what they do for your body.
Yeah, training for climbing is an interesting thing. I mean, climbing itself is just so difficult. It doesn't matter what level you're doing it at, like, it's really hard. And it's really hard on the body. It's something that, like, you know, human bodies are meant to, like, run and walk around and hold stuff. They're not, like, really good at climbing, and even just something like the shoulder joint, like overhead movement, and a lot of the things that we do while climbing are especially stressful on that joint and, like, on the fingers and everything. You know, our hands are, like, evolved to do, like, nice delicate tasks and stuff, and then here we are, like, just clobbering them against rocks all the time. So it's really easy to get injured, and kind of the way that I look at training for climbing, first and foremost, is kind of a way to make the body more resilient so that it can better handle, like, this crazy stress that we're putting on it when we climb. And there are some pretty specific and unique strengths that a climber needs that are different from something that, you know, someone participating in another sport might need. All the general strength that you might need for another sport is also very important in climbing, but some of the things that really set climbing apart have to do with, you know, things surrounding the hands a lot of the time. So, like, finger strength and pinch strength, and also, like, the speed at which you can apply that strength to, you know, the rock or plastic or whatever it is that you're climbing on. So, and that kind of brings us to fingerboarding and campus boarding. Fingerboarding is really great because it's a very direct and kind of specific way to load the fingers, but it's really controlled in a way that climbing is and can be kind of inherently very uncontrolled. Like, you're moving really fast and swinging, and it's a very multifaceted activity. So there's a lot going on when you're climbing, but when you're fingerboarding, you're really able to just kind of isolate the stress on your fingers and the load on your forearms in a way that, in a lot of ways, is safer than climbing. So hangboarding is great because you can precisely and in a controlled manner, like, load your fingers. Finger injuries are one of the most common things in climbers, and a lot of that happens because what we ask our fingers and our body in general to do while we're climbing surpasses the capacity that those structures have to, like, handle that load. And so fingerboard becomes a really good way to progressively and over time load the fingers and the structures in the hand and all the connective tissue and the bones and everything to promote adaptation, so that when we go climbing, we have, you know, more capacity in our fingers to, like, actually perform climbing movements. The campus board kind of takes that a step further. It introduces a lot more dynamic movement, obviously, because you're moving, like, with a.
And it's for power, right? Or is that not?
Yeah.
The case?
It is best suited for training power. There are other ways to train on a campus board that aren't so directed towards, like, power or rate of force development. So on a hangboard, what you really can focus on is the actual peak force that you can apply with your fingers. Where on the campus board, there's a time component involved where you're trying to apply as much force as you can in the shortest period of time that you can. And that is really the difference between strength and power, kind of in the simplest terms, is speed in a way. Like like I may be able to, hold 50 pounds with my hand, but it may take me a whole second to apply that amount of force, where on the campus board I can train myself to apply that amount of force in a shorter amount of time. And it's really a neuromuscular adaptation that allows me to like fire those muscles faster and faster. And that's sort of what folks are talking about when they're talking about contact strength. It's like you could say contact strength, you could say finger power, but it's all this idea of like increasing the rate of force development in the fingers. If the holds are big enough, so like a traditional campus board is made up of kind of 3 sizes of rungs that are about a fingertip in depth. So they're pretty hard to just hang on to, let alone like pull on. So with those kind of fingertip sized edges, it's really mostly focusing on the force development in the fingers. But if you're able to use, I've seen some gyms that actually have like pull-up bars oriented like in a campus board manner, or like we make jug rungs, so they're like really easy to hold on to with your hands, and so in that way it isolates your pulling muscles a little bit more, so you're working on rate of force development in those pulling muscles more so than the rate of force development in the fingers. But it's both important. Both things are important.
So with the different boards, the thing that always fascinates me is understanding the point in which to start using them. Mm-hmm. I've bought every training book that you could buy. And so most training programs will incorporate a variety of these things, including some sort of system board or wall. Mm-hmm. How do you move through using those? And is there even a structure? Because if I don't want to train power or contact strength, or that's not necessarily my priority, and maybe I just want to use the tension system board at my gym, or if I just feel like my finger strength is terrible and I want to use the fingerboard. Like, how does somebody, especially new people, how does somebody know when they should start using it? And is there a risk to injury using it too soon? Because the interesting thing that you said that I never thought was that the fact that the board or the fingerboard is so that you can hopefully prevent injury from doing like crazy moves and crazier and harder holds on the wall or outside. But if you don't do that, or if you start using the fingerboard, which I've heard too soon, that can also get you hurt. So like I'm just trying to understand how that's knowing like when to start training is kind of like, it's a hard question because it really depends on the individual and honestly like what they have access to. Because at least in my experience and the experience of other trainers that I've talked to, you take something like the campus board and the fingerboard, and the campus board is more kind of injury prone than the fingerboard or hangboard. I would agree.
Just because like you're adding that dynamic motion into it, everything's happening really fast, the forces are really high. And with fingerboarding, it's isometric, it's slow, like, and very controlled, so less risk of injury. But I don't see a lot of like acute injuries on the fingerboard or even the campus board, where like someone got hurt in an instant on a fingerboard. Usually what I see with injuries using those different like apparatuses is it ends up being an overuse thing, where folks maybe don't kind of have an appreciation for how much load they're putting on their body just by climbing, and then start adding in all this other stuff and just end up doing too much too soon or too often, and then they start picking up these nagging injuries over time. And I think that's probably the first thing for folks to like really understand is just this idea of like the overall load that you're putting on different parts of your body. And if you have really great access to climbing, whether inside or in a gym, and you're able to do a lot of actual climbing. Adding in a lot of fingerboard training, one, probably won't help you that much, and it's putting even more load on those structures that you've already been loading through all that climbing. And that really just puts you at risk for overuse injuries, and the payoff is probably not that worth it. So
you're not gonna start climbing for your first 2-3 months and then all of a sudden jump 5 grades because you start fingerboard training. Like it's not.
Yeah.
It's not some magic pill to get you from V0 to V5.
Well, and it's such a skill-driven sport, right? Like one of I think the more interesting findings along a handful of different groups have done like finger strength studies on climbers, and what they've found, or what most people talk about when they talk about what they've found, is that like a higher grip strength correlates to higher like grades climbed. But what I don't feel like gets enough attention is how large the range of finger strength there is at all these different grade levels. Because it really like this is sort of my opinion on like climbing in general. Like a better climber will be able to do the same move with less strength. Like it's very skill oriented, and I like even just speaking for myself personally, like I'm not very strong relative to the grades I've climbed. Like I just have been climbing for 20 years, and like I feel like I rely a lot more on how I climb as opposed to how small of an edge I can hold. And that's something that I think is, especially as a new climber, like one of the most important things. And like, I don't know, I think climbing should be fun, right? And like climbing is fun. For me, like fingerboarding is fun in the sense that like what it would then potentially allow me to do like as a result of that training. But like if I could get my fingers stronger through climbing, like I would just much rather do that. Like it's fun, and and it works too.
It does work. It's funny, I tell people it was like a light bulb moment. I remember the exact moment where I knew I was stronger in the fingers. And it's like, I don't know how. I don't know. I've never fingerboard trained ever consistently up until the past 2 weeks. And I was like, okay, climbing does make you eventually stronger. And that's why I tell new people, just keep climbing, just climb and have fun. Because at the end of the day, if climbing isn't fun for me, like why am I doing it? And I climb outside, so I'm risking injury, life in some situations. So like, I'm not gonna do that if I'm not having fun.
Yeah.
But I will say, once I understood body movement, that was transformative for me, because it did make it a little bit less work, and sometimes it's not fun when you do just want to get to the top, especially if it's an easy grade. And it can literally be a matter of just turning your hand this way, or
it's like, so crazy.
How is one move that has nothing to do with my upper body strength, just the placement of my hands or feet. And that's it. I'm like, that is the thing that I'm like, all right, that's what people need to learn, and that makes it fun.
I think that's the coolest part about climbing. And the harder and harder climbing gets, like, it's certainly there is an increase in strength that's necessary, but what's cooler to me is just what you said, like the difference between like having my hand here or having my hand here. And like the harder and harder the climbing gets, the more nuanced that gets. So it's like the difference between having my hand here and like turning it just like almost imperceptibly to the side, and then all of a sudden something that you couldn't do at all, like now I do it every time. That's the thing that keeps me coming back. Like that's so, that just gets me. That's so cool.
It's the puzzle piece of, like that's the thing, that's the reason why everybody is like, climbing is so great and distracting, because you have to think about where the heck you're going.
Oh yeah.
I mean, even when I don't pre-plan, because I used to be like, people look ridiculous to me. Like, what are you even doing?
It
Like,
looks
why?
ridiculous for sure.
And then eventually I started to actually, because I swear I would try to figure out where I'm going to go, and then I would get on the wall and I'm like, whatever I just did down there, I have no idea. I'm just trying to get to the top.
So it's wild.
It is the funnest puzzle ever. Like, I mean, every sport I've done has been challenging, but not on the body and the brain. You know, like it's, I don't know. I mean, it's the best.
I agree. But yeah, and not to like totally rag on fingerboarding and campus boarding, because I think one of the ways in which those things are the most useful is if you don't have quite as much access to the climbing itself. Because in order to get those tissues to adapt, like either to make you stronger or like, you know, especially in the fingers, your ligaments and tendons and your bones get thicker. And in order to get those adaptations, you need consistent loading. And so if you're only able to make it to the gym like one time a week or less or something like that, then, you know, having a fingerboard at home or hanging a flashboard on a pull-up bar in your apartment and being able to load those structures with more consistency over time becomes really important to preventing injury. Because if you're only able to go once a week and every time you go, you're really pushing yourself, if you're not consistently like kind of convincing your body that like, hey, this is something I'm going to keep doing, like you got to get with the program, then you won't adapt as quickly or in some cases at all. So that's really where I think whether it's finger training or lifting weights or anything like that, it's a way to really get your body to adapt and become more resilient so that you can actually do the thing that you're having fun doing and be able to like engage with those puzzles. Like it's not fun to, at least for me, and maybe this will resonate with you too, but like if I'm out trying something and I'm just like constantly worried about like hurting myself on it, it definitely takes away from it. So it's nice to be able to like know that like my body is on point, it's going to be okay, like, and really be able to engage with the kind of mental and like puzzle part of the activity that is so much fun. So
yeah, no, that's true. That's awesome. Yeah, I never thought about it as sort of a supplement. I just looked at it's a means to get to a certain goal. I'm going to use this thing because I'm trying to get this, or I'm trying to improve on a weakness. You know, like I'm not very dynamic, and I've gotten better at being dynamic by doing more dynamic climbs on purpose. But it's fascinating because definitely not everybody can have a campus board, although I've seen some really nice setups in gyms, but or in home gyms, not gyms. But I think that is a good resource to have, and I like the flashboard. I've seen people using those now, and those are, you know, I'm like, oh, okay, because I climb outside a lot. Like if I could climb outside exclusively, I would, but I don't live in Denver where there's like rocks and mountains 5 minutes away. I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah.
We got to drive an hour just to go climb. But I think there's a use for all the tools. And, you know, this video is an attention plug. This is a training plug.
Well,
disclosure.
to plug some other people who I would really recommend as far as like places to go for training information, climbing information. Camp 4 Human Performance, Tyler Nelson. He's done a lot of work to kind of like help people understand like how, especially like isometric training works. And that's something that, you know, anyone can do. You don't have to have weights, you don't have to have bands, you don't really have to have anything. Like it's really effective. And so that's a really good resource. Power Company Climbing also, like
I just met the owner,
Chris.
Utah a couple weeks
Great
ago.
dude.
Yeah.
And Nate Drelay as well. Like they have like a great team of coaches. Their blog's great. Their podcast is great. And Natasha Barnes, really great resource, especially for strength training and barbell lifting, which is something that has not, it's starting to get more attention in kind of the climbing world, but is such like a valuable way to train. And yeah, those are, there's more, but top three people to find, like, check them out for sure. Really great information.
That's awesome. Thanks for the resources, and I'm sure people will go look it up. And I'll put the links, especially to the Power Climbing Company, because I have been checking out a lot of that. So I'll put the links in the comments for folks who are looking for some resources for training. Just train smart, be safe, and keep climbing is really all I can tell you to do. So thank you for this and taking this time, showing me around the space. It's really cool to sort of see how these things are made. I'm really fascinated with it, and maybe I'll get one of those time machines back there and start making some stuff in my garage.
Heck yeah. Thanks for coming. Thanks for visiting. Appreciate it.
But thank you all for watching. If you enjoy, as always, hit that subscribe button. You can find me on Instagram at TiffBfirst, and you can follow the movement at Black Girls Boulder on Instagram. But in the meantime, between time, see you next climb. Peace.